A mother's death becomes the beginning of a tree-rooted demon, targeting her child. The film opens by showing a woman named Amanda, who works for a large company in the United States. After spending months on assignment in the Philippines to supervise a major project being built by her company, Amanda is now on her way home. The project in the Philippines is extremely important, forcing Amanda to stay there much longer than she originally expected, far away from her family and her everyday life in America. During her journey home, Amanda decides to call Felix, a man who seems to have a close relationship with her. Felix might be a colleague, a close friend, or perhaps someone more than that. However, Felix does not answer the call, so Amanda leaves him a voicemail, hoping he will return her call soon. In the message, Amanda expresses that she has been feeling something strange during her trip home from the Philippines, a feeling that makes her uneasy, as if something bad is about to happen.
Professor Felix Bojas, please leave a message.
Happening. Strange.
When she arrives at her house, Amanda brings her belongings inside and, after finishing unpacking, begins cooking dinner for her family. While doing so, she suddenly notices a shadow passing across the upper floor. At first, Amanda assumes it is her daughter, Sarah. But when Amanda goes upstairs and is about to open Sarah's bedroom door, she suddenly receives a call from Sarah, who tells her that she and her father, Dr. Thane, are not at home and will not return for several hours. Amanda is immediately confused. If Sarah and her husband Thane are not home, then who did she just see upstairs? Panic sets in as Amanda realizes that someone may have broken into her house. She quickly calls 911 to ask for help, but suddenly Sarah's bedroom door opens by itself, and a mysterious figure appears and drags Amanda into the room. Amanda screams hysterically, and her screams are heard by the police operator who is still connected to her phone, prompting several officers to be dispatched immediately to her house. Sometime later, Thane and Sarah, who have just returned home, are confused to see several police cars and an ambulance parked in front of their house. When they ask what has happened, a police officer named Roy tells them to remain calm. Roy slowly leads Thane and Sarah to the backyard, where they find Amanda hanging lifelessly from one of the trees.
Detective.
In the midst of their grief, the sound of a ringing phone suddenly breaks the silence. The sound comes from Amanda's phone, which has now been taken as evidence by the police. Standing beside them, Roy picks up the phone and notices that the incoming call is from someone named Felix. Roy asks Amanda's husband, Thane, who Felix is. Thane's expression instantly changes upon hearing the name, but he chooses to remain silent and gives no explanation.
Doctor, who's Felix Bojas?
The scene then shifts to Felix, who has just received Amanda's voicemail. In the message, Felix hears Amanda telling him that she felt something strange during her journey home from the Philippines, a feeling that made her uncomfortable, as if something terrible was about to happen. Feeling a strong sense of dread after listening to the message, Felix decides to fly from the Philippines to America to see Amanda, unaware that she has already died by hanging. Upon arriving in America, Felix wastes no time, renting a car for the next few days and immediately driving to Amanda's house. During the journey, Felix's mind becomes filled with memories from the past that he cannot forget, revealing that Amanda and Felix once had a romantic relationship while they were in the Philippines. That feeling appeared out of nowhere. However, Amanda realized that what they had done was a serious mistake. She knew she already had a family, and because of that, she chose to end the forbidden relationship. Amanda decided to cut off all contact with Felix in order to protect her marriage. She even had the courage to speak honestly with Thane about what had happened over the phone. During that call, Amanda apologized to Thane for the grave mistake she had made. She confessed to the affair she had been involved in, hoping that Thane would forgive her. Amanda promised she would never repeat the same mistake and firmly stated that her relationship with Felix was completely over. However, before Amanda's death, there was one strong reason that pushed her to call Felix again. In her confused and desperate state, Amanda felt there was no one else she could talk to about the strange feeling that kept disturbing her throughout her journey home from the Philippines. In Amanda's mind, only Felix might be able to give her the answer she needed. Since the first time she got to know Felix, Amanda had known that Felix possessed a special ability that ordinary people did not have. Felix had extraordinary powers that allowed him to sense and see things beyond normal human perception. At times, Felix could see fragments of the future or the past and perceive energies invisible to the naked eye. Amanda was convinced that with his abilities, Felix could explain the strange feeling that had been haunting her. Suddenly, Felix experienced a brief vision showing Amanda screaming in pain. The vision was part of Felix's supernatural ability, and instantly he felt that something terrible had happened to Amanda. The image of Amanda screaming echoed relentlessly in his mind, making it impossible for him to stay still. Therefore, without wasting any time, Felix decided to go straight to Amanda's house. Even though he was aware that his arrival might worsen the situation, especially because of his past relationship with Amanda, Felix felt that Amanda's safety was far more important than any risk he might face. Shortly afterward, Felix arrived at Amanda's house in the morning. Thane, who had just returned from hunting, noticed a car pulling up to his house. At first, Thane assumed the man had the wrong address, but when he heard the man introduce himself as Felix, Thane immediately became furious and attacked him, knowing that Felix was the man who had an affair with Amanda. Thane's violent assault on Felix was stopped by Sarah, who happened to witness the incident firsthand. Disgusted by the sight of Felix, Thane began to drive him away from the property.
Felix Fojas.
Go! Dad?
Before Felix left, he suddenly received another vision, this time of Sarah screaming hysterically, as if experiencing something horrific. In addition to seeing Sarah's terrified screams, Felix also had a brief vision of a police officer named Roy evacuating Amanda's body. After receiving these visions, Felix rushed to the police station. Meanwhile, at the police station, Roy was busy dealing with piles of reports related to Amanda's death. From the very beginning of the case, Roy sensed that something was off. Amanda had been found dead under unusual circumstances. There were no signs of forced entry in her house, and all the initial evidence pointed to suicide. However, several details did not make sense and caused Roy to question that conclusion. Was Amanda's death truly a suicide, or was someone else involved? Noticing multiple unresolved issues in the report, Roy decided to dig deeper into the people who had last been in contact with Amanda, one of whom was Felix, a name mentioned in Amanda's final voicemail. According to the information he obtained, Felix was a man who had been involved in a forbidden relationship with Amanda and might possess crucial information about what really happened to her. Roy then instructed one of his subordinates to contact Felix and ask him to come to the police station for further questioning. However, before the order could be carried out, Roy's subordinate informed him that Felix was already at the police station and had been waiting for Roy in the lobby. Roy was instantly confused, wondering how Felix could already be there when he had only just ordered his subordinate to summon him to the station.
Yes. You must be psychic. Phoned, now I find you in my office. Oh.
Driven by deep curiosity, Roy meets Felix and asks how Felix could possibly know that Roy was about to summon him to the police station. Felix explains his unusual ability, revealing that he can see fragments of the future and the past, as well as sense energies that others cannot perceive. The vision of Amanda's death has been haunting him since that morning, which is why he came to the police station without being contacted first. Felix says that his reason for coming is to learn more about the police investigation into Amanda's death and to find out whether there were any irregularities surrounding it. Roy mentions that the police only found a broken mirror in Sarah's bedroom and explains that he cannot share further details about Amanda's death because the information is confidential and restricted to the authorities.
Assumed you had questions, as do I. Sheriff, can you tell me, did your investigators find what harm can come from sharing that information?
But a broken mirror, the daughters.
Roy then plays Amanda's final voicemail, which she sent to Felix a few hours before her death. Amanda's voice sounds anxious as she talks about strange things she has been experiencing lately and her feeling that something was about to happen. Roy looks at Felix, hoping he can explain the meaning behind the message. Felix listens carefully to Amanda's voicemail, but deep down, he is still uncertain about what truly happened to her. Even with his ability to see the future and sense unusual energies, everything still feels unclear and he cannot give a definite answer. Felix explains that before Amanda's death, he sensed something abnormal, a dark energy surrounding her, although he cannot yet determine what caused it. Suddenly, Felix receives another future vision, this time showing Roy in danger.
With events involving the supernatural.
Are you ill, Professor?
Elsewhere, before leaving for work, Thane takes a moment to drive his daughter to school. Although his mind is still filled with images of Amanda during the trip, he tries to act normal in front of Sarah.
Oh, Riley can take me on the way to the center. It's fine.
Ladies?
Father will. In Syria.
Upon arriving at school, Sarah suddenly feels unwell. Blood begins to come out of her ear, and she asks her teacher for permission to go to the bathroom. Instead, Sarah experiences a hallucination in which she sees a black-robed figure performing what appears to be a ritual. The sudden presence of the figure startles Sarah so badly that she loses consciousness. In another place, Thane, who is busy working at the hospital, is suddenly approached by Felix. Felix meets Thane to discuss Amanda's final message before she was found dead. However, overwhelmed with patience and lacking time, Thane asks Felix to meet him later that evening at a bar he usually visits after work. Felix agrees and says he will wait for Thane there. After finishing his work, Thane heads straight to the bar they agreed on. When he arrives, he finds Felix already waiting. Seeing Felix's face immediately fills Thane with anger, but despite the rage he feels over Felix's affair with his wife, Thane manages to control himself and avoids causing a scene in the bar. Felix then tells Thane about Amanda's last message, describing the strange feeling she experienced during her journey home from the Philippines, a feeling that made her uneasy, as if something terrible was about to happen to her. Wanting to understand the meaning of the message more deeply, Felix asks whether Thane's family has recently experienced any strange events. Hearing this question only makes Thane angrier, as he believes Felix is intruding on his family's privacy by asking unnecessary questions. Before leaving, Thane warns Felix that if he ever touches or interferes with his family again, he will not hesitate to kill him. Thane then walks out of the bar.
What about your daughter? Is she acting differently or out of...
You can't see it, can you?
The people around them, most of whom know Thane as a calm man who rarely loses his temper, watch the confrontation closely. Seeing Thane issue such a threatening warning shocks everyone, and all eyes turn to the two men. As Felix prepares to leave the bar, several men who know Thane step in and block his path, assuming Felix is the source of Thane's intense anger. Without asking for an explanation or listening to Felix, the men immediately beat him until he loses consciousness. As night falls, Thane sits down to enjoy dinner with Sarah. When Thane tries to start a conversation, Sarah suddenly behaves strangely, her attitude turning aggressive without warning. She even lashes out at her own father with harsh words that are completely inappropriate, leaving Thane confused by her sudden change in behavior. The situation escalates when Sarah abruptly leaves the dining table and storms toward her bedroom. Once inside, she locks the door. Thane, not understanding what caused such a drastic shift, gently tries to talk to her through the door, but Sarah gives no response. Growing increasingly worried, Thane forces the door open, only to discover that Sarah has escaped through the bedroom window. Panicked, Thane searches frantically around the yard, but his efforts lead nowhere. With no other option, he calls the police to report Sarah missing and asks for help finding her. Meanwhile, under the influence of her strange behavior, Sarah walks to a small auto repair shop and meets a mechanic, whom she seduces and invites to make love. What happens next is completely unexpected, as Sarah ends up killing the mechanic. Elsewhere, Roy is on patrol in the middle of heavy rain when he notices someone lying by the side of the road. Upon closer inspection, he finds Felix unconscious, his face bruised and covered in wounds. As the rain grows heavier, Roy quickly takes action, struggling to wake the semi-conscious Felix and placing him into the patrol car.
There you go.
Seeing how weak Felix is, Roy decides to take him to the nearest hospital so he can receive proper medical treatment. While on the way, Roy receives a report from dispatch about a murder that has occurred at a small repair shop on the outskirts of town, and he is ordered to head to the scene immediately. Upon arrival, Roy is shocked to see the mechanic dead, hanging as if it were a suicide. While still in the car, Felix suddenly experiences another vision, this time seeing a group of people gathered in a remote forest, standing in a circle around a bonfire while performing a ritual. After the vision fades, Felix gets out of the car and tells Roy that the mechanic's death was not a suicide, but the result of black magic. Roy, who has never believed in supernatural matters, simply shakes his head at Felix's claim, dismissing it as nonsense. Without giving it further thought, Roy orders Felix back into the car and allows the other officers to continue handling the case.
Tell you to stay in the vehicle.
Back to Thane, who is growing increasingly desperate after failing to find Sarah. He repeatedly calls the police, only to be told to wait because the officers are still dealing with other cases. Frustrated and unsure of what else to do, Thane sits silently in his car, hoping for a miracle that will bring his daughter home safely. In a moment of resignation, Thane suddenly notices Sarah walking back toward the house with a vacant stare. Instead of speaking to him, Sarah goes straight into her room and collapses onto the bed, drenched from the rain. Still filled with anxiety and fear, Thane tries to understand what really happened to her. However, Sarah's response only confuses him further, as she says she feels as though she has just woken up from a long, terrible nightmare. Thane falls silent, trying to process her words, and realizes that something is deeply wrong. Not long after, there is a knock on the door, and when Thane checks, he sees that it is Roy. Roy has been assigned by the police department to check on the situation and verify the report about Sarah's disappearance. Thane apologizes to Roy and explains that Sarah has just been found. Roy, who cannot stay long because he still needs to take Felix to the hospital, immediately excuses himself. Just as Roy is about to leave, Thane asks him to bring Felix into the house. As a doctor, Thane cannot bring himself to leave Felix in such a weak condition without medical help, so he decides to treat Felix's injuries at home. While Thane tends to Felix's wounds, Roy asks for permission to leave because he must head to the location where the mechanic was found dead. Roy explains that one of his subordinates will later pick up Felix and take him back to his lodging after the treatment is finished. Having the chance to speak directly with Thane, Felix feels compelled to share something extremely urgent. In a serious tone, Felix warns that Thane's family is in great danger because someone is using black magic to attack them. Thane, as a doctor who is trained to think rationally and seek logical explanations, does not believe Felix's words. To him, every problem has a cause that can be explained scientifically, and mystical or supernatural matters do not align with his way of thinking, which is grounded in facts and evidence. Thane demands proof from Felix to support his claims, stating that without clear evidence, Felix's words are nothing more than nonsense. Unable to provide concrete proof, Felix can only describe the brief visions he has seen of a group of people performing a ritual deep in the forest.
There was fear in her voice.
Where does that leave us? If anything is happening here.
Shortly after, Felix is picked up by Roy's subordinate, who takes him back to his lodging. Upon arriving there, Felix once again experiences a disturbing vision of the same group carrying out a ritual, and this time he realizes that Sarah is their next intended sacrifice. Unsure of what to do next, Felix contacts a friend of his in America, a priest named Imari. Imari has deep knowledge of the occult and is often involved in confronting dark forces. Fearing that something terrible might happen to Sarah, Felix immediately takes Imari to Thane's house. As soon as they arrive, Imari can sense a sinister presence surrounding the house.
Felix, this property has been cursed.
I expected it, but I didn't know.
They knock on the door, but no one answers, as Thane is away taking Sarah to school. Realizing they cannot enter the house without permission, Felix chooses another course of action. He decides to explore the forest near Thane's house, convinced that the visions that have been haunting him originate from there. While searching through the forest, Felix notices a photograph of Sarah pinned to a large tree, as if deliberately placed for a specific purpose. Believing this to be solid evidence, Felix reports his discovery to Roy. After hearing Felix's report, Roy immediately goes to meet Felix and Imari. Together, they search through the dense forest, struggling to relocate the photograph Felix had seen earlier. The vastness of the forest makes the search increasingly difficult, and Felix grows confused as he tries to recall the exact spot where he found it. After a long search, they finally find the photograph, but Felix realizes that it looks different from before. Imari, with his sensitivity to supernatural forces, feels a strong negative energy surrounding the area. He tells Roy and Felix that someone is deliberately using black magic to target Sarah and disrupt her life. They must act quickly to uncover who is behind the sorcery and stop the dark ritual that is already in motion. Realizing the urgency of finding more clues, they decide to split up to speed up the search, with Felix and Roy heading deeper into the forest while Imari searches another area alone, relying on his spiritual abilities to detect the hidden dark energy within the woods. After wandering for a long time, Felix and Roy discover a fairly large treehouse. They decide to inspect the inside. Because the entrance is located in a hard-to-reach spot, Felix offers to support Roy so he can climb inside.
Anything?
Once inside, Roy immediately feels an overwhelming sense of dread. He then sees a figure wearing a black robe.
Identify yourself. Slowly remove.
At first, Roy hesitates to approach the figure, but eventually gathers his courage and moves closer, pulling back the hood of the black-robed figure. What he sees underneath is completely unexpected. The figure is not a human at all, but merely a human skull that has been enchanted with dark magic. As soon as the spell takes effect, Roy freezes for a moment, and blood suddenly pours out of his mouth. Weak and helpless, Roy struggles to escape from the treehouse. After he finally makes it out, Felix sees blood continuing to flow from Roy's mouth and eyes. This is the very vision Felix had seen earlier, where Roy was in grave danger. Not far from where they are, Felix hears strange voices. When he follows the sound, he discovers a group of people gathered around a bonfire. One of them, wearing a mask and a black robe, is chanting strange incantations. Unexpectedly, the group realizes Felix's presence. They immediately chase after him, refusing to let him escape. Panicked, Felix runs as fast as he can to get back to where Roy is lying. Fortunately, Roy still has enough strength left to save Felix by shooting at them with the gun he is carrying. Curious about who is behind the black robe and mask, Felix removes the mask and discovers that it is a woman named Christina. Felix asks what her purpose is in performing such rituals. Christina then speaks honestly, explaining that she deeply misses her mother, who has recently passed away. Her mother was the only family she had in the world, and after her death, Christina felt completely alone. In her grief, a tree-rooted creature appeared and tempted Christina, telling her that it could grant any of her wishes, including allowing her to meet her mother again. However, there were conditions she had to fulfill before her wish could be granted, one of which was providing sacrifices as food. Hearing this, Christina was willing to do anything just to see her mother again. She began by sacrificing her own pet dog as the first offering. After that, she was instructed to sacrifice people around her. With the dark spells she had learned, Christina found it easy to obtain victims for the tree-rooted creature. She even deliberately cast a spell on Sarah so that Sarah could help fulfill the creature's demands, which proved effective as Sarah unknowingly killed a mechanic as food for the creature. However, what Christina did not anticipate was that continuously feeding the creature with sacrifices only made it stronger. After finishing her explanation, Christina collapses from her gunshot wounds, and shortly afterward, she dies on the spot. Without wasting any time, Felix rushes to take Roy back to the house, while Imari is asked to neutralize the dark spell affecting Roy's body. Curious about the tree-rooted creature mentioned by Christina, Felix begins reading all the investigation documents related to Amanda's death that are kept in Roy's office. A shocking truth is revealed. The major project Amanda supervised while she was in the Philippines had actually freed an ancient demon. The project involved massive deforestation to clear land for development. Unbeknownst to those involved, the trees they cut down were not ordinary trees. One enormous tree that was felled turned out to be the resting place of a powerful demon that had been dormant for centuries. This demon, or tree-rooted creature, is known in local belief as Batabat. Cutting down the tree released the Batabat from its prison, and the creature became enraged. Once freed, the Batabat began hunting those responsible for the destruction of its home. In this case, Amanda was one of the key figures in the project. Even if Amanda did not fully understand the consequences of her actions, the Batabat still marked her as a primary target. Batabat, unleashing all of its power, had been following Amanda ever since she was still in the Philippines. However, Amanda never realized the danger stalking her until it was already too late. Felix begins to understand that the threat posed by the Batabat demon did not end with Amanda's death. Still filled with vengeance, the Batabat appears to have shifted its focus to Sarah, making her the next target. Felix suspects that the Batabat does not merely want to haunt Sarah, but plans to take over her body and use it as a new vessel for its dark power. Realizing that Sarah is in grave danger, Felix and Imari race against time to save her from the Batabat demon. They know that the only way to stop Batabat is to seal it back into a tree, which is its original dwelling. A large tree in the forest near Sarah's house may be the key. They rush to Sarah's house before it is too late. Meanwhile, as Thane is about to leave to buy groceries, he hears Sarah screaming as her body begins to be taken over by the Batabat. Fortunately, Felix and Imari arrive just in time and immediately begin preparing everything needed to seal the demon. First, they search for a large tree suitable for sealing the Batabat.
Remain undisturbed. And we're going to need a vessel for the spirit.
After finding the right tree, Felix quickly draws special symbols on it that will later be used to bind the demon. Meanwhile, Imari prepares candles and holy water to fight the Batabat that is now possessing Sarah's body. Once all preparations are complete, Felix, Imari, and Thane enter Sarah's room where they are shocked by the horrifying transformation she has undergone.
Layers of the devil. Sarah. Christ, hear us.
Thane, who had never believed in mystical matters before, is terrified and panics at the sight of his daughter. The demon effortlessly injures Thane with just a single glance.
Oh my God, Sarah. I'm fine. Help my daughter.
Not only does it render Thane helpless, but it also easily damages the eyes of a woman who is assisting Imari in driving away the Batabat.
This demon now took your servant Sarah.
Realizing that the Batabat is far stronger than he had anticipated, Imari urgently asks Felix to take Thane and the woman out of the house before the situation worsens, saying that he will face the demon alone. Instead of following Imari's request, Felix tells Thane to take the woman away while he stays behind to help Imari confront the Batabat. Suddenly, the door to Sarah's room locks on its own, preventing Felix from helping Imari, who is struggling inside against the demon.
Imari! I command you.
Don't let...
That's a lie! You're the minister of God!
Inside the room, Imari tries to remain calm while facing the Batabat, but the demon's power, greatly amplified by the continuous sacrifices provided by Christina, overwhelms him. The Batabat succeeds in rendering Imari helpless. Outside the room, Felix desperately tries to break in to help Imari, attempting again and again to force the locked door open until he finally manages to get inside. However, when he enters, it is already too late. Felix sees Imari under the influence of the Batabat. The demon then changes its form, transforming into Amanda. Disguised as Amanda, the Batabat attempts to seduce Felix and weaken his resolve. Fortunately, Felix realizes that this is merely an illusion meant to manipulate his mind. Summoning all his strength, Felix begins reciting the prayers he has learned to seal the demon into the large tree he previously marked with special symbols. With every word spoken, the symbols carved into the tree begin to glow. Slowly, the Batabat's energy is drawn out of Sarah's body and pulled toward the tree. The demon struggles to resist, but its efforts are futile, and in the end, Felix successfully seals the Batabat inside the tree.
You are no longer welcome. I and may the trembling that affects this human to return to the designated vessel I have prepared.
After the ordeal, Sarah and Imari return to their normal states, no longer under the influence of the Batabat. Thane, who had been consumed by fear and confusion, returns home to find Sarah safe and unharmed. Overwhelmed with relief, he thanks Felix and Imari for saving his daughter and freeing his family from the demon that had been haunting them. Before Felix returns to his home country, he decides to visit the large tree where the Batabat is now sealed. He realizes that even though the demon is bound, the threat could return at any time. The tree is the key, and as long as it remains standing, the Batabat will stay sealed and never be freed. Several months later, a major project is planned by a construction company to clear land in the forest near Sarah's house. The project involves large-scale deforestation to build new facilities in the area. Unbeknownst to them, one of the trees scheduled to be cut down is the very tree that holds the Batabat's seal. Once that tree is felled, the seal will be broken, and the Batabat will be released once again. The terror of the Batabat will return, hunting down the lives of those responsible for the destruction, and the story comes to an end.